All right, Ken, thank you so much for joining me on Behind the Art. Obviously we've been friends on Facebook for a really long time, and really love your work. And
Oh, cheers.
I'm glad we get to finally sort of meet via internet or
Yeah.
via Zoom or Google Meet. But yeah, welcome, dude.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks for having me on. Sorry it took
So,
so long. It's just, California to Irish time isn't exactly easy. So,
oh yeah, I totally I mean, yeah, the time difference
yeah.
is challenge. Like I've done this. This is my 11th interview, and the first one I did was actually a guy named Giannis from Greece,
Oh,
and
I know
he like
Janos Nakos.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I actually scheduled an interview with him, and it was like literally midnight my time, and then like 10 a.m. his time, so it was like
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was a late night.
Yeah. Janos is in Central Europe. He'd be an hour ahead of me. So,
Yeah, but I think he preferred doing the morning for the interview, so I was like,
oh,
no worries. I don't really sleep that much anyway, so all good.
you guys have great weather. So,
Yeah. Before we start, so did you finally figure out the issue with your Cintiq not connecting with your Mac update?
that was just a part of a series of what I like to think of as just like very arrogant, egregious software expectancies. It's like, oh, it doesn't work, just buy a new one. It's like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna hand whack them out another $3,000 just because you do a Mac OS update. No, the guys in the Mac store in my city, when they see me coming, it's not a big city, but the guys, when they see me coming, they know it's urgent, they know it's a problem. So they just wiped my Mac and put it back to the last OS. They put it back to I don't know, Catalina, I think, and everything's working fine.
Okay.
Because everything is subscription based now, it's very easy to just go back in and reinstall all the software. Some software that was really bugging me because they expect you with a new OS to just go buy their latest version, so some of the old licenses don't work. But I'm very fortunate because I teach in a university that I have academic licenses for a lot of the stuff I use these days. So it was okay. I just logged on to college and just downloaded everything I needed.
Yeah, that's kind of one thing with I mean, I just recently started paying for Adobe. Like before I literally had a like CS like 5. Like I
Oh,
was
you
using it
did?
for like yeah, and then all of a sudden the new job that I got like kind of required the newer, so now I'm like kind of stuck in the subscription base, which it's convenient but also a pain in the ass when it comes to they just update it constantly, and sometimes it doesn't work
Yeah.
with some stuff that you have.
Our kind of rule in college is, well, with my tech, as a friend of mine, is do not update your OS for at least 6 months of it being on the market, so all the glitches are gone. And then, when Adobe does Adobe Max, let's say in November, that doesn't roll out onto our system in college until next September. So, because
Okay.
you can't just go off and do a massive update on labs upon labs of machines in the middle of the year. You have to wait until the next end of semester, summer, to do the updates. So,
Oh, okay.
but again, with Adobe, they bring out all these new fancy things, and they're like, oh, look what you're going to be able to do in Photoshop, and we're bringing in all this stuff, and you're like, yeah, what kind of machines are you running at Adobe Max that you can just do all this fancy stuff? That's all bought by brand new Cintiqs and another $6,000 MacBook with 128 gig RAM just to do all the stuff you did on stage. So,
Yeah, that's kind of why I keep my like I have a Cintiq. I got like one of those like the 13-inch. It's like 15 years old now, but I don't
yeah,
use it at all. I just use my XP pen because it's just like it's all I really need it for is just to kind of do some
yeah.
you
I,
know
I'm running
flourishes.
on my behind me here. I have my 27-inch. This is the one, and I also have an older Intuos that was just decommissioned from university, but they use the
Okay.
same pen, so I can go between them if I need to.
Okay, that's handy. Yeah.
Well, it was until the OS update. I haven't figured out this one yet, but I carry about 3 Wacom tablets with me in my college bag all the time. And I think if this thing ever claps out, I don't mind because I use my iPad with Procreate for all my detailing. far more than I use Photoshop now for detailing. So yeah, I probably just use that from now on because I find it a lot easier. You know, I went off and I updated my Corel Painter Pro license. I was using the educational license for years, and I was using it more and more. So I bought the Pro license. Then, as a wedding present, I got my wife an iPad Pro, and when I saw Procreate, I went off and saved up for iPad. So I think I spent $400 on Painter, and then I opened it once after I got Procreate. But I do use it sometimes because some of the brushes, the fractal brushes, I love them for doing some kind of fine art looking tech stuff in my own work. That's not if it's personal work, I'm doing experimentation. I'll use those brushes in Painter, and I still love drawing on this thing. So
Yeah, actually, Coral Painter is really good. I mean, I know a lot of artists who use that because it mimics the actual like oil paint,
mm,
and like I know Photoshop, you have to kind of like maneuver the settings a bit, like it's not just built in.
yeah,
But yeah, with iPad and with Procreate and all these apps now, it's like super easy. But for whatever it is, like I have the most difficulty like working on screen. Like I can draw on a piece of paper or whatever, fine. But when it comes to doing it on screen, I just like my brain just like can't compute for some
yeah.
reason.
Yeah, I'm able to do both these days. But I remember when I got the iPad for the first time, it was almost weird going back to drawing like on a sketchbook, that kind of feel after just looking at a screen and drawing like this for so long. Because the my Cintiq is there's like a big ergonomic arm,
Okay.
and so when I come home from work, I drop the MacBook in behind it. I can literally I have the touchscreen interface on this, and if I want, then I can I can turn it up and I can stand up and sketch on it as well. And I can turn it this way and I can have it down here and I can draw like that as well. So,
Okay. Yeah,
but it
that's
mostly just stays in that position and I just draw directly on the screen.
yeah, that's another thing I've encountered. Like, used to my screenless tablet, like it's ergonomically, it's like more like natural because like you're
Mm,
not like bent over or whatever. But I think that arm definitely solves that issue. You can kind of adjust.
yeah. The only thing is, the only way I could get a desk big enough for the work I do, this is actually my mother's old dining table,
Okay.
right? And we recovered it, so it's a good, you know, probably another 30 40 centimeters wider and 50 centimeters longer than your average computer desk, because I have my PC laptop that's running the scanner, which I'm not going to show you right now because that side of the table is I just pushed everything out of the view to the complete mess. And my cameras, because I come home from teaching in university, and some days I'm dropping cameras on the table, some days it's miniatures, some days it's like I have Xbox controllers from game design. So my table on one side kind of looks more like the kid in Big Hero 6 when he's down in the shed and he's got 3D printers and loads of. It kind of looks more like that than an illustrator's desk. So there's just loads of tech lying around everywhere. And I've been trying to. I have a stack of these lacy hard drives I'm trying to go through,
Oh, okay.
going back as far as 2017. That I'm trying to find old files, cloud some good stuff, and wipe one so my son can use it on his Steam account. But yeah, the table's a mess. But I need lots of arm space. So
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to kind of have everything kind of out in the open. Like, I mean, I have the office here, but I'm pretty, for the most part, pretty tidy. If I'm gonna do any painting, I usually do in the garage, or I have a little stand. But
mm,
for the most part, it's work digitally, so I kind of keep it tidy for the most part. But yeah, I think for you in your case, it's like having everything on hand is more important than it looking tidy.
yeah, there's no well. My wife is an illustrator designer as well, but she Margarita is more the tidy graphic design kind of artist. She has a very
Okay.
clean desk. Mac works on very line based floral design. My desk is just absolute chaos, but I like it that way. Like if I pick up something random on my desk right now, you have a bottle of zero beer. There's acrylite spray for my this is the activator spray for super glue. There is wire brush tools here, and there's also right beside a tripod and a half-used expanding foam at the same time, and they're all sitting on top of my 3D scanner right now. So you know,
Yeah, I got like the only thing on my desk right here is like the Superman figure, and I got some.
you
That's
can see
about it.
behind me. There's a lot more than one up there. So I've got basically one shelf is all my favorite stuff, little bits of everything, all my trinkets, and the other one is stuff that I rip apart and is all work in progress, whether it's going onto the scanner for parts or it's been customized for somebody else. Because when I finish with my models, or if I'm building something or making something that's gonna become a piece of art or a custom or whatever it's going to be for, it ends up being on this little kind of runway here, and then probably sell it to another collector in Germany or something who wants something to see on my desk that they just want it. So it's always kind of organically moving. Nothing ever stays in place on this table,
Nice.
you know.
Yeah. So the first question, kind of basic, but when did you kind of start, creating art? You can go back as far as when you were a kid or when your career kind of started, or
Oh, well, I knew I
when
wanted
did
to
you
be an
know?
artist. I knew when I was 8 that that's what I was going to do for a living. And I'd already started to draw pictures, mostly for the girls in my class, um, because I remember being obsessed in school that I wanted to be good at something. Because I went to a school where we have Irish sports, GAA, like hurling and Gaelic football, and there was a lot of guys in my class who were really good at the sports, and it would be, I guess, equivalent to being in a part of the states where your high school is obsessed with hockey, and the people who are good at hockey are the heroes in the school, right? And the artists and musicians are overshadowed in a way, and it was very kind of and it was an 80s kind of. I still feel like there could be more inclusion for kids, and there is now, but for kids who are not into sports. But back then, I just wasn't into sports, and then I just people noticed I was good at drawing and started asking me to draw them pictures, and that's how it all started. And then someone gets you Crayola marker sets for Christmas, and I started drawing my favorite characters from He-Man. I remember one time obsessing over the fact that when you use ready mix paints, the powder paints, and you get them in these tiny little circles, and you add the water, real kids paints, but I could never get the black enough, because when it dries, it just goes charcoal gray.
Oh yeah.
And you're just putting more and more black on the page, and then the page just falls apart, and it's just not dark enough, But then I guess it just continues from there, always drawing, trying to mimic comic books. Like a lot of people, we all grew up just trying to copy a cover off a comic book or the shape of your favorite cartoon. We had these Disney encyclopedias in my primary school, and one of them was all about the history of Disney, and it showed old drawings of the evolution of Donald Duck and the evolution of Mickey Mouse and so forth. So I convinced myself I wanted to work for Disney when I was a kid. And then, of course, you'd know of somebody who knew or heard about Don Bluth Studios opening in Dublin in the
Okay.
late 80s. So it became a thing that, like, you could go working in animation in Ireland, and that's where I wanted to go at first. But then it just evolved, I guess. Was more into comic books, as you grow older, and then I was going to go to Dublin to study animation, but just through some circumstances, I ended up going to the art college here in Limerick, in my local city here, and I guess I was exposed to so much more than pen and paper, you know.
Yeah.
But that was the start of it, anyway.
Okay. Yeah, actually, my mom is actually from Ireland, and I've been there about 6 times.
Okay.
But yeah, like it always like I'm also friends with Stephen Lindsay, and
Yeah.
I realize he lives nearby my aunt and uncle who live in County Wexford.
Yeah.
But
He probably knows your cousins,
yeah. But yeah, I was always curious about like the art scene in Ireland because the times I visit, I'm usually kind of like spending time with the family or we're like kind of traveling around, and I don't really get to talk with other artists or meet up with other artists because at the time I was like the first time I think I was 9 years old, but the last time I went was 2019. But I was always curious, like you, for instance, like you're wearing a Morbid Angel shirt, and like I know there's a metal scene and like an art scene in Ireland, but I've just never seen it in person. I've always just like seen it online. And I've always like it's always like still surprising to me. Like there's kind of a like the type of art that you do, like that's a thing. You know what I mean?
It's a hard one to explain because I've been exposed to the fine art world so much because I studied sculpture and I studied fine art printmaking in college, and now I teach for that college, and I'm quite I get to mix with my former lecturers who are now my colleagues, and they're very much, some of the guys are very much in the fine art side. But when I went on the Erasmus, and the Erasmus program is our international exchange program. So I went to Stockholm in Sweden when I was 20. But when I was in transition year in secondary school, so secondary being the equivalent to high school, you have an optional year, which is fourth year, which we call transition year. So as part of that, you go and do work placement for 2 weeks. So my first work placement was actually in the art college in the graphic design department for 2 weeks in October '95, so 30 years ago. And the second was in a graphic design studio in March '96. And I was exposed to Photoshop at both of those times. So I got to see digital work for the first time and scanning. We wouldn't have had digital cameras at that time, but I got to see how people would draw and scan and then put text over it. And I had to do a couple of real second year college graphic design projects while I was in the college, redrawing logos and fonts and using lecture sets, etc. And then when I was on the Erasmus in Sweden, I hung around with a lot of guys in the industrial design department. There was and graphic design. And once they showed me how to take my acrylics, photograph them, scan them, and just start messing with Photoshop, after that I was sneaking into the graphic design department in the art college because a lot of my friends were doing graphic design. So I think I learned more from the graphic design side of things, and I was obsessed with Photoshop and what you could do with camera. But how it really hit me was when I was doing the work placement. There was a project to do a call card, which is it was like it looked like a credit card, and you have credit on it to call from payphone.
Yeah.
And I did an invisible one. I just got a bit of acetate. I cut out the chip off an old card, stuck it on it, and I was doing a call card to God. So I wanted it to be omnipotent. It was going to be translucent. But I took a picture of a wizard from a Magic the Gathering card, and I slipped it into the back behind the thing. And the card, I was very proud of it for someone who was 15 amongst a bunch of 21, 22-year-olds. One of the guys made a Judge Dredd card at the time, and it was amazing. I was blown away by what he was doing. He did the whole, a little kind of a real kind of retro tech slipcase for it and everything. It'd look like somebody retroed a zip disk drive at the time. It was really amazing, and seeing that level of professionalism. But the head lecturer took me and said, "Oh, that's really nice. Is that your illustration?" I said, "No, I went." She said, "Where'd you get it?" And I said, "I cut it off a card." And now remember, I'm 15. I know nothing about copyright. And she absolutely tore me apart. So I learned about copyright in a very aggressive way at the age of 15. And that convinced me in art college then that I want to get my own camera and I want to make all my own images using my own photos. And I guess what happened next was it's because I have a camera, I started getting photography jobs, and I put myself through a lot of college just doing photography and graphic design for people. Yeah, that's kind of you just get into it, and I always wanted to find ways to make money as an artist. It's not that I had a problem with authority. I just didn't like working in uniform jobs. I had a couple of them through college, like working in clothes shops, retail, and I just didn't feel I was ever a fit for normality, if that makes sense,
No,
Um,
yeah, yeah, I get that. Yeah.
so, and as you were asking about the art scene, like myself and Stephen just had, you probably saw online, we had a group exhibition called Tintamara, which means
Oh
the dead
yeah, yeah.
virus in Irish.
Around
I just
October, right?
I had a solo show in a brewery here in Limerick. It's a craft beer brewery last year for Halloween because the whole Halloween, what we call Samhain, which is the Irish for Halloween, and Halloween being of pagan Irish origins from 2,000 years ago. I was asked would I put some artwork into the brewery, and the year after I said I'll just do a solo show here with all my death metal art. And then this year I was looking and going, why don't I get Stephen and Gary Reynolds and myself, Roseanne Hayes here in Limerick as well, who does all the t-shirts for our local metal scene for the metal festivals, and I got Colin as well, Bulger, who is the Bulga design, and myself and Stephen, and I'm sure Gary are all part of the same art groups online as yourself and Dean and Ren and Robin, etc. So yeah, it just myself and Stephen have been talking online and met each other a bunch of times in the last 15 years. So it made sense to bring him down, no? And a big congrats to him now getting into the Geiger book. That's huge for him.
Yeah, I was like, because I'm friends with Spiridion or Spiridon. Hopefully I'm not butchering his name. He's the guy that kind of put the book together.
Okay.
But yeah, you like Steven and another couple friends are in that book, and I was like, what the hell? Like, where you didn't contact me? I would have loved to create a like a
Yeah.
guitar gear. But I'm like, maybe next
Yeah.
time. But yeah, that's really cool. So I know you kind of like being sort of a freelance artist and like you mentioned having like art shows like, and I know you do a lot of conventions as well. Do you what's like how important is that like having like going to conventions, being present to kind of talk about your art? Does that
Um,
help like the
but
your business at all?
I think what's important with the convention scene for me anyway is it all started when I just was I myself and a friend from school. We were all friends for a very long time. We're still talking. We've known each other since we were four when we were in school. Derek Cosgrove, and I mentioned his name because we went to San Diego Comic Con in 2009, and there was an art show you could apply for. So I put my stuff in for the art show at San Diego, and I sold a piece of artwork. So I still have a piece of a check for San Diego Comic Con lying around here somewhere. Um, but I think light bulbs went off in his head when he saw what could be done in Ireland. And himself and some of his friends were all big Predator heads. And they were doing the suits and everything. They were all into cosplay and making their own stuff and starting to get into the industry of buying the silicone and casting and resin and everything. So they set up Dublin Comic Con, and I think the first year in 2013, I had a table. I did a talk for them about digital art. And that was the first year, about 3 or 4 thousand people. And now every year there's like 60,000 people going to it in one of the biggest venues in Dublin. So it's massively evolved.
Oh wow, okay.
But in 2019, my wife for Father's Day bought me tickets to go to Grayskull Con, which is a big He-Man con in Germany. And I had been doing a bit of He-Man art because my process had evolved, and I've been doing miniatures and photography with miniatures. And because I collect He-Man stuff, and my work always revolved around nostalgia. I went over and I met people at that con, and then other people met me and asked me to come to their con. And I started just doing more and more of this, more of the pop culture illustration, because I suppose things really took off. Like one of the reasons we met. Sorry, I'm going to lose this. It keeps slipping off my head. One of the reasons I met a lot of you guys is when, and Derek, actually, my friend Derek is directly responsible for me doing the Morbid Angel artwork, because one of the members was living in Ireland at the time, and he met my friend Derek in down in Cork where he was in college. He said, "Oh, you got to check out my friend's Ken's artwork," and I ended up doing Warfather for him, for Steve Tucker. And then he got back to Morbid Angel, and things followed on. I ended up doing a Morbid Angel art, and then because of the Morbid Angel art, I was invited to a lot of the online metal communities and to do interviews as the new artist for Morbid Angel, etc. But then the He-Man stuff started to take off, and because I'm quite good at graphic design as well, I started actually helping with on there was a rebrand done at one of the biggest He-Man conventions in the States. And I started to learn the trade of cons, which is like you could go to the States. So instead of getting paid to do the art, you get paid by having your flights, your hotel, and your table covered. So in 2022, I went to PowerCon in Ohio, and I met other people. And in I think from our generation's point of view, the best thing to do is actually physically go out there and meet people, and you find people with common ground. You make friends. They start to trust you, and then those friends offer you work. You know, it's not that you're going. Oh, I've never gone and opened up a portfolio in front of somebody to try and get a job at a Comic Con or anything like that. I just literally met the right people. I was coming in from dinner. I popped my head into the bar and I saw two of my friends, one is from Germany, one's from Italy, who are both professional designers with Mattel and other toy companies. And I sat down. They introduced me to some other guys, and my table buddy at PowerCon, Aaron Archer, was the head of Transformers for 15 years. He was at the bar. He introduced me to the other guy, Vonner. Bonner was like one of the top guys in Hasbro and Marvel Legends, and he's like the best independent toy agent. So we got chatting. We had a very similar sense of humor. I was just making a lot of crack jokes, and I bought him a Jack Daniels, and I was sorry, I was teasing him about being like 13% Irish, and you know that kind of because he shows me a genealogy app, and I was like, oh, sure, like Obama. If you come to Ireland now, they're all going to open a petrol station with your name on it, you know, and you'll have a big chipper. So like, because that's what when Obama came to Ireland years ago, and they found out that his great grandfather was from Moneygall. They had this huge like petrol station with the biggest fast food joint in it ever, and it's just called Obama Plaza. So I was like, come to Ireland now, and when they find out now that you're from Ireland, you'll get a chip shop with your name on it, you know. And he was just laughing at me, and it's just kind of just meeting people that have similar humor, similar interests, and then he saw my work, and when you gain that kind of friendship, that becomes professional trust. And yeah, I just started doing more and more work for the guys here in Europe as well. They needed artwork for conventions, you know, because I'm used to doing from the graphic design and even my fashion jobs, doing like large artwork for banners, billboards, working in InDesign. So I know all about like painting really large, highly detailed work, and knowing that it's going to be used for T-shirts or it's going to be used for banners rather than or an album cover. So that's kind of where that has led to, I guess, you know.
Yeah, that's one thing that I haven't like. I know, like you said, you know, being there in person, meeting people in person has more of an impact than just like an online conversation. And people remember how you are if you're like a nice dude.
Yeah.
If you're, you know, they remember that more than just like, you know, and that's something that I've you know, I want to do, but I'm like, it's like I have like social anxiety. Like I used to be like a lot more outgoing, but something over the last few years, maybe it was COVID. I don't know.
Age.
It
I don't want to go
it
out if
just
it's
kind of.
dark outside, you know.
What'd you say?
I don't want to go outside if it's dark.
Yeah,
That's my bedtime.
maybe that's just an age thing too. But yeah, so I think it kind of prevents me from actually being involved in the art community because I live in Monterey, which is kind of it's about 2 hours from San Francisco. It's kind of a nice area, but there's not a whole lot of artists who do the stuff that I do. So it's hard to find a community locally to kind of, you know, meet up.
Yeah.
But I think I need to do that more, like actually have my prints and go out and sell stuff.
Well, I don't know. I just kind of followed the path that was laid out in front of me, and there is a fine art scene in Ireland, and Stephen will possibly agree that there isn't a digital art scene in the way that we're used to. So because I had experience, like I put on a digital art show, the first digital art show in my city in terms of print-based work, people working in Photoshop, 3D, photo manipulation. I put on a show 15 years ago. I remember I was so nervous and terrified, but the place was packed out. It was because I put it on the time of year when the art college was coming to the end. So it was kind of a good kind of April summer season for a lot of people to go out on a Thursday night, drink beer, look at a show. Um, so because my city has a good art community because of the art school, and now that I teach there, it just made sense for me instead of going, oh, nobody wants to see our art or digital art, and we can't get into the fine art galleries. Our work isn't accepted. Pretty much, screw that. I'm just going to set up my show myself. And we've already had a couple of people interested in adding to our show next year. And I'm very aware that I don't want to become the very gatekeeper that I was trying to, I suppose, what would you appease at one stage, and then being kind of offended or annoyed because your work isn't being put into shows because it's on computer or because it's digital or it doesn't suit or it's not considered fine art. But I realized instead of going, oh, these people won't accept me, I just go, I'll just set up our own show. Let's do our own thing. We can pave our own path. We don't have to follow the kind of Irish saints and scholars route of fine art. I don't want to obviously step on the toes or insult anyone else. I know I have a lot of fine art friends. I have a lot of respect for people who taught me and my colleagues. I have just taken a very pop culture entertainment kind of approach to my work. But my personal work, that is not He-Man. That's not for somebody's album cover. That's like yourself when we're doing our own personal explorations. I don't see much difference apart from the medium in my kind of mental exploration. Where am I putting my emotions? What am I trying to achieve through making and creating and putting something out there on a canvas or on a screen? It's always an exploration, and nostalgia happens to be my emotional safe place for starting something.
Yeah.
And I even have friends who tease me. I don't watch horror movies. I'm not into vampires. I have friends in death metal bands who are all about horror movies. And I'm like, I'd rather watch the Care Bears or the Gummy Bears. And because I know that there's enough dark shit going on up here that I don't have to be expressing it. Like I watched Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, and the colors are beautiful. The aesthetics are beautiful, but I find the way he treats the human body very kind of makes me uncomfortable. It's like it's always a broken bottle of red wine, the way the body breaks in his.
Oh yeah, that particular scene with
Have you seen it?
Oh yeah. We actually, me and my buddy, we do a movie review channel on YouTube, and we reviewed it. I think last week or the week before, but yeah, I enjoyed it. It was like visually it was very, very good. Story wise, again, like I'm not really a Franken like Mary Shelley. Like I don't really know the story that well. It's kind of like with Dracula, like you're just or like Nosferatu, you're like okay, it's the basic story there, but it's kind of been played. It's been done over and over again.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like okay.
Yeah, I loved watching it, but I think for me there was something lacking. I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I have students in my photography and film course that have absolutely loved it. So teach their own. I'm not gonna diss it because the colors in it were amazing. The set was amazing.
Yeah.
The props. And I have a great respect for some of the things Guillermo del Toro has said recently about what did he say that I loved? He said, "I'm not afraid of AI or intimidated by it. He's just afraid of stupid people." Because the AI stigma, and I'm sure we might always discuss this. Look, it's there. I teach with it because I need my students to know about it. Because there's no point in my students going, I'm never going to touch this. And then they might go, I want to be a concept artist for a games company, but because they didn't kind of want to learn because of their own ethics, maybe the job they want doesn't exist in the future. That we need to evolve and figure out ways to use this new creative process. And I found ways that I think it's going to be revolutionary for artists. But the stigma is there that we have to get over as well. But the stigma is, like Guillermo del Toro said, now everyone thinks because they can type that they're an artist. And all of a sudden the likes of you and me, who love our Photoshop and DAZ and 3D, we're the gatekeepers all of a sudden. And 15 years ago, it was photographers when Instagram had filters, you know. And have you seen the Drew Struzman, Drew Struzan documentary, The Man Behind the Poster?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like the older one, right? Like the older
Yeah.
documentary. Yeah.
There's just a bit in it with some of his artist friends start talking about how Photoshop changed their careers, because now there's nobody traditionally illustrating movie posters anymore. Photoshop came along and it changed the scene, you know,
Yeah.
for commercial artists. And so this is just another one of those times. Like there's drum machines, but there's still drummers, you know?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I was actually going to ask you because I know you teach. Was that something that sort of like fell into your lap, like the whole teaching thing, or was it something that you were kind of wanting to
No,
do for a while and you
it was
just did
something
it?
I want. I got a love for it years ago after I was asked to do some demos. I had friends who lectured, and it was the job I kind of really always wanted, because it would also make everything I do sustainable. And I find it very uplifting sometimes. I might be talking with you guys online in the groups, and I'm talking to Dean, and you're talking with Renee Robin, and Dean might tell us every once in a while, you know, I'd be like, oh my God, Dean Salmon did book covers for Stephen King, and Renee's after shooting Phil Anselmo from Pantera, and you know, but they're kind of going, yeah, but you have a university job, so you know where your rent comes from every month, you know. So I'm in a very, very privileged position to be able to do the things I want to do with no fear of falling off a cliff monetarily. You know, my job is for life, hopefully, and I like to evolve with the job as well. Which means learning about AI. It's learning this whole new minefield of ethics that come up for artists, for designers. Like I've been looking at even newer models in AI that are going to revolutionize the kind of stuff I do with 3D scanners, you know. Um, so, but then you meet every once in a while. There's someone. I remember a couple of years ago, someone came along and said, "I've no respect for your art, because you don't draw." And then somebody else said to them, it was on He-Man stuff, and someone else said to them, "Oh, but have you not seen all the other stuff he does with the photography and the painting and the customs and the scanning and the 3D and bring it all together to look like a painting?" And I was like, "Yeah, but he doesn't use a pen and paper." So I've no, I know part of me was like, "You are totally entitled to your opinion," but part of me was like, "Well, if I stuck with pen and paper, there was no joy in that for me. There was no excitement to see what's the next step." You know, I love playing with materials. You know, I'm still like the board here behind me that I'm going to start a painting after Christmas, and I think that was one good thing about the AI and within the communities we're in, is people started to go back to traditional and mixing it with the digital
Yeah, for
to
sure.
get a sense of. We want to hold on to our humanity at the end of the day, don't we? In our
Oh
art,
yeah.
our emotions, and like there was a time where I was frustrated. I saw Dusty Peterson as well being frustrated that doesn't matter how hard we work, somebody else types Skeletor jumping off the top of Castle Grey, and they do this amazing prompt piece of artwork, and everyone thinks, "Oh my God, I want to buy this! It's the most amazing He-Man piece I've ever done." And but now people are like, those same people are just commenting AI slap, and I go, "Oh, I did this piece," but we have to be more transparent about what we do as well, you know. But
Yeah.
I've always been as transparent as I can be. I use as much of my own stock photography as my own materials, different things, you know. So maybe I've just gone ahead and answered my AI question there already. Um,
So
I,
so when did you, because I know like you're kind of actually one of the reasons why I picked up ZBrush and started experimenting with like modeling in ZBrush, because I know you
oh,
use
okay.
that. When did that begin? Like when did you start using or incorporating ZBrush into your work? Because I know you do
Um,
the stuff for the
yeah,
He-Man stuff. You
there
you
was
scan and
we have a European magazine here, um, Imagine Effects. It's printed in the UK, and I discovered Imagine Effects back in 2000, about February 2006. This magazine, it was all about digital art. All the interviews were with people using Photoshop, Corel Painter, And then I discovered ZBrush in the magazine. So I immediately went off when I saw that I could mix and render stuff in 3D to put into my, because I loved making complicated kind of areas in my art that reminded me of Hieronymus Bosch style and kind of demonic paintings. And when I saw this, I immediately went, "Oh my god! I could actually take my experience with sculpture and do it in 3D and mix it with my photos." Because I used to love building things, and then I got like good digital cameras back in about 2007. But then there was this new thing. I could go, well, I could sculpt things in 3D and match the lighting in 3D to what I've done in the real world. And because 3D would have been something that was before that was this magic, unattainable Hollywood thing that we would only have known about from movies. And then you have the user-friendly stuff for artists like Daz and Poser. And I was already playing with them. But then when I saw that I didn't have to follow the kind of preset formats that you have in Daz, where people are just like literally buying a new wardrobe and rendering a picture using all the preset stuff, I would just
Yeah.
take the body, put it into ZBrush and rip it up and make something completely abstract, and then add that to my Photoshop work. And then nowadays with the scanning and more sculpting and new processes, there's I can't remember the last time I did a piece of art that didn't have 3D in it. You know, there's 3D in all my stuff now.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've been using Poser probably since 2000, and I actually used that up until maybe 2011,
Mm.
and then I kind of started uh, learning Daz. I thought Daz had better models. Like
Yeah,
Poser always like they all look the same. It was kind of bad,
it
but
has better
I taught
it has
myself
better
Daz.
presets, I felt. You
Yeah,
know,
like
instead of
it was
having to try and mimic a natural pose, because I know from your work the poses you use, and when you're trying to do it in Poser, you could be all day trying to move a hand to make a gesture, where you could just have grass and some natural, you know, the kind of, I think you and I kind of would look at the dancing, the ballerina, the falling kind of poses, those kind of poses in
yeah.
that. And it helps you to get to the point where you want to enjoy the work faster than spending all day on this app where you're literally just moving something like a stunt puppet, and you pull this and the arm just goes the wrong way and you're
Yeah.
like, you know, when people give out about Microsoft Word, that when you put in a photo and you move it and the whole paragraph goes all over the place?
Yeah.
That's what happens in Poser when you try and move a joint. The whole arm just goes
Yeah,
mental.
you get
So
the dance
having,
of death. You get the
yeah,
dance of
yeah,
death
and
cover.
then Uncanny Valley broken in half, kind of, where at least as you can go and go, I'm going to go into my drop down and find a falling pose, and I'll do a grasp in the hands, and then I'll mix it with a bit of ballet. And then I love the morph sliders, you see, where you can put in a little bit of demon, and you could slide in a bit of orc or change it to something a bit more mythical. I turn off all the textures when I'm using dice, so I just see a grey model. I don't use any of the textures, just the base geometry, you know, the shapes. That's all I use. And I texture everything and then in ZBrush later on. With a lot of and nowadays I texture everything as much as I can with my own textures. I make my own alphas. Um, Unless I'm in the middle of a project that has a deadline and doesn't, there isn't a necessity for me to go off and create a bunch of stuff myself, or I don't have it and you're on a deadline and you have to be practical, you know.
Yeah, I had to actually because I wasn't using the full ZBrush. I was using a ZBrush Core for a
Yeah.
while. I was paying like $10 a month, and then it was pretty basic, but it had enough where I could like bring in a model and texture it and do all that stuff. But then they changed the model. Now I have to pay. They don't offer the Core thing anymore,
Okay.
so I haven't been using ZBrush for a while now. Tried Blender. Blender was like, I'm so used to the ZBrush controls that it's like
Yeah.
going back to Blender. It's like, it's not the same. So
Blender,
I've been missing it.
Blender, in my experience, is like when I'm teaching concept art or I'm teaching something to my game design students. You have a game design student who'll come in who's been drawing all their life and went to go to art school, but they wanted to do something in pop culture and entertainment. And then you have the game design students who come from a programming background who may have done tech drawing and are way more into a program interface than they are into creating art. And I find that some of those students are really into Blender because they could get it when they were 16 for free and use it, whereas some of the students are way more into ZBrush because they're coming from an artistic background and they want to be able to organically sculpt. And kind of almost the way you can sculpt in ZBrush is just like drawing, you know?
Yeah.
So it depends on the fit for the person. I hate Blender. I find it very unwelcoming. And I have students go, "Oh, would you not try this in Blender?" And I go, "How about you try it in Blender, and I get someone and hire someone like you to do that bit for the work, so I don't have to." You know, uh, yeah, just Blender's not my thing at all. I have tried it, I have used it. It's just not an interface that I have much joy out of as an artist. You know, it's just I don't know, like going back to pen and paper, or just using a material or a medium that is just not your thing.
Yeah, I kind of, I was adamant on learning it, and I got to the point where I was like able to kind of like figure out some of the controls and like the key commands to model, and they do have a lot of stuff that they got from ZBrush in Blender now,
Yeah,
but it's like there's like too many options as opposed to ZBrush is more for like just modeling.
yeah.
Blender's for like video editing, animation,
There's a lot in there.
texturing,
There's a lot
and
in there.
that's very intimidating. And honestly, I don't have the time to sit down trying to get
Yeah,
clients to do stuff. It's really hard to find that time.
it is. Yeah. And like I said, look, I have specific clients now, and there's people that I regularly want to work for. And the fun thing about what you said about the cons, one of the people that I work for had said to me recently when we were doing something, goes, "Ken, I only want to work with people I know and people I can trust." And I like to tell that to my students because I have students sometimes who are unbelievable. As in, if I look at where they are at the age of 20 to 22 versus who I was as an artist at the age, they would just blow me out of the water. But they want to put up some students just want to put up an amazing portfolio on ArtStation and wait for the phone to ring, or in this case, wait for someone to DM them on Instagram or TikTok. And I'm trying to tell them that it's not going to work that way for everyone because there's a million versions of you on ArtStation. There's always another version of who you are, maybe from another country with a different background, maybe someone who's doing more Asian style stuff but has the same skill set. But it's a flooded market. But if you're out there and you're meeting people and you start to find a group of people who are in the industry, whatever niche it is that you can trust, and they trust you, you'll start to find the work. So and that's, well, look, I'm lucky. That's what happened to me. But part of it was just going out there and just meeting people. But if I stayed at home and just put my work up online, now okay, I was lucky. Someone did reach out to me because of my work on ArtStation. And maybe because our generation, I think our generation is quite unique as well in the fact that because we didn't grow up overly exposed to anime, and we love like I can see your Frazetta behind you there.
Oh
We're
yeah.
exposed to Star Wars and Swords and Sorcery, that and Brian Froud and that real '80s labyrinth, Dark Crystal style of kind of fantasy that sticks with us more. Some of us anyway. It sticks more with us more than flooding everything with the cat art style and the anime style on top of all that. Like I just want to stick within the stuff that I like, and I remember when you see stuff then like Dave McKean doing Sandman covers, and you're like, I want to do a bit of that, but I want to mix it with, and there's his name's got out of my head now. This French Pascal Blanche, he's a French artist doing ZBrush illustration,
Oh yeah, yeah. I love his
but
work. Yeah.
he's minimal palette, but with this real '80s feel. Like his posters sometimes look like they sat in a video shop window till they faded in the sun, and I love that look. You know,
Yeah, it's
um,
very stark, like red and green kind of
yeah,
contrast. Yeah,
and it's
I
a
love his
great.
stuff. Yeah.
There's like a 70s, 60s, and 70s surrealism there in an '80s style, but with modern tools. And I feel like I'm using 3D scanners, digital painting, sculpture, photography, macro photography, my own paint, ink, all to make something look like it was hand painted in the '80s. Um, but we're kind of, I think, lucky that if you kind of remember what your roots are, and why do we do this, and why do we like it, and it can be important. I use my landscape a lot, you know, and I'm very lucky because, you know, I live in a land where there's 14,000 abandoned castles that are thousands of years old. So, and they're on your doorstep, you know.
Oh yeah, my uncle or my aunt and uncle live in Ferns, and they have like literally the Ferns Castle, and like they have this old cathedral across the street,
Yeah,
and it's like that
and that,
tombstone's from like 11 something. I was like, holy crap! Like, yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
cool. Yeah,
It's a very, yeah, our country is very steeped in like very ancient culture, you know. But when I need to do something for He-Man, or because I'm working on something at the moment where I need real life scale. I went for a walk this morning. I took a photo of my wife just standing outside the door of our medieval castle because it's the same size as Castle Grayskull should be, with two gigantic, massive towers and a gate in the middle. All it's missing is the skull head. So I just got her to stand and I took a photo of my phone, and I know that I'm a bit about a foot taller than her. So if I Photoshop me in, I know how big the gate should be. And the guys that I was doing the project for in the States were like, holy crap, you know, you're going into that much detail. I was like, why wouldn't I? That castle's 2 blocks from my house. It was built in 1100. You know, you can't go making Castle Grayskull and do it wrong when that's on your doorstep. You know, so and I got to design a Castle Grayskull with Mark Taylor, who was the original creator of He-Man, Skeletor, and Castle Grayskull. More so, there was a bunch of them working on He-Man, but he designed Skeletor. He created Skeletor. He sculpted Castle Grayskull, but he had a prototype. Mark Taylor did, and I asked, could I design the sides and the back, and he said sure. And I worked with a sculptor, a zebra sculptor, who at the time was far better than me at the sculpting, and he's now really into the effects and texturing and doing hair and stuff like this for film and look development and lighting. But Philippe Gomez in Spain sculpted the castle, but he sculpted the front of it, gave me the model. I put it sideways in ZBrush, and I went down to my local castle. I took scans off of the original Castle Grayskull, and I photoshopped the sides of the skull and the back of the castle based on our castle here in Limerick, because that's a real castle. If you look the sides of it, you could imagine that that's what Castle Grayskull should really look like, with a bridge.
yeah, with all the textures. Yeah,
yeah, and the scale. And that's what he did. I gave him back all the 2D stuff I did in Photoshop in a real kind of movie concept art style, and he went off and sculpted the rest of it, you know. But I love the fact that that castle we have now is based, the sides and back are based on my castle here, King John's Castle. That's like 2 blocks from me.
yeah,
So
that's awesome. Yeah, kind of like what you were talking about your students, trying to get work, and it really, I mean, what I've learned, especially being like a freelance artist, is like it's not how good you are, it's like the relationships you have with said client,
yeah,
because there's, yeah, like you said, there's loads of more talented people than ourselves, but if someone trusts you and you can produce the work on time and you're
yeah.
likable, they're going to always go with you rather than some stranger who has an amazing portfolio.
Yeah, and I find that I struggle with ego in art and arrogance, and I struggle with my own ego, but I have a place to put it. In, as you know, when you're doing your own art or personal work, you can put your ego in there. It doesn't affect the work you have to do for a client, because a client is really a team effort, and you're working out somebody else's ideas. And another part of that is it is trust, it's consistency, and it's your experience. Because this time of the year, like from September to November, I'm not doing a whole lot of sci-fi artwork. I am starting the He-Man stuff for next summer and the sci-fi, but I'm actually working in theatre. I'm doing photography and brochure design and the front cover artwork for theatre and pantomime. Pantomime is a tradition in England and Ireland where you do the whole fairy tale plays at Christmas on stage for the kids. And the
Okay.
whole, he's behind you, and oh no, you didn't. Oh yes, you did. All that kind of Cinderella. So they're doing Red Riding Hood this year, and I got to photograph the actress as Red Riding Hood in the woods here in Ireland last summer, with a really cool, big, real kind of almost Frankenstein, like the kind of wardrobe you would have seen in Frankenstein. That kind of really cool wardrobe. in the woods, and now that's on buses here in my city and on billboards, and I get to show that to my students. But I photographed that last July for it to be used now. And in September, I start doing all the layout and artwork, brochures, pop-up stands, and then production photography for another theatre group. So I've loads of theatre on from September to November, but starting in July. And February then really kicks off back into con season when everyone's getting ready to have whatever con that they're doing that completely orbits around San Diego, you know? Because San Diego is the big one. It's like the sun, and every other planet is some smaller convention that rotates around it, you know? You don't want to put on, from my experience only, this is my experience talking, and it's an opinion, is somebody would want artwork, but they're not going to, people don't want to spend money on certain things in July. Why? Because they want to save up for San Diego Comic Con. They want to save up for all the exclusives. They want to save up for their ticket, you know? I remember, because I do artwork for Battletech and Catalyst Games based in the States. And that happened because I was working in the game shop here in Ireland, and the guys are so into Battletech here that they knew the creators of Battletech and Catalyst Games in the States. And they said, give our friend Ken a go. And it would not be that different from the Marvel artist Declan Shelby. If you know Declan Shelby's work.
Okay.
Dec was in college with me. And Dec also, one of the guys from my city, also works for 2000 AD. He lives in New Jersey, and he works on 2000 AD comics like Judge Dredd and all that stuff. And and through the same shop, Declan got working for Comics in the States, and then he landed his big gig with Marvel. And then, he's drawn Deadpool, Wolverine, he's written stuff, he's working on Thundercats now. But then I ended up with Battletech through the same connections, different people. And I've been working on Battletech for ages. The guys are trying to get me to come over to Gen Con sometime, so I might, but it's just the travel can be crazy. Like, I went the last time I was over in Atlanta in 2024, September 24, for a G.I. Joe show. And I flew in on a Thursday, got there after 24 hours of travel, did the gig for all day Friday, all day Saturday, and then flew out Sunday morning and got back.
Oh, wow.
And did college on Monday. So I was like wrecked, if we were to go to California, because there's another Tooniverse is on in California in May, and I'm doing a digital conference for that.
Okay, where in California?
I should know this, but I don't. Because when you say San Francisco is only down the road, it's very hard for someone who lives in Ireland to equate how close things are in the States. Because, like, when you say, your relatives are over in Wexford, where Stephen's from, that's still only an hour's drive. Like, the furthest you can go in Ireland is 296 kilometers. That's as far as you can go, right to the north, and so 7 hours driving, and you're at the other side of the country. And from here to Dublin is 2 hours and 20 minutes across the country. So that's as far as you go. So when someone says, "Oh, I'm down in Florida, come down and see me," I'm like, "Yeah, but you're like 20 hours across one side of Florida to the other." It's not, and and it's not like Ireland where everyone knows each other's cousins. You'll go to the States, and sometimes you'll meet someone from Ireland and go, "Are you the Colemans from Tipperary?" You go, "Maybe." Why? He goes, "I know your aunt." Everyone seems to know each other. But sorry, I went off on a tangent there.
Oh, no worries, dude. Yeah, we're closing in on the end, but so in terms of do you prefer doing your own artwork, or do you like it when you're given a client brief, a outline of something to do? Because sometimes I'll get a band or someone that would let me just do whatever I want. And sometimes I get stuck on not knowing what to do because the option is too broad, as opposed to someone saying, "I have the idea, this is how I want it, but I want your style." Do you prefer that, or do you prefer having creative freedom?
It depends on the project. I'm hopefully doing some artwork with a new band who we're a death metal band, but going back into their grindcore roots, and they may want something. They said maybe it doesn't suit your style, Ken. And I said, well, here's the thing, guys. I've worked in graphic design for years, so I've done lots of album covers that have nothing to do with my style as an illustrator, and they might have something to do with photography. So we could say, like, if you want me to go to the butcher's and get a whole load of vacuum packed guts that we're going to make something that looks like Napalm Death, I can shoot that as a photographer and do it. It doesn't have to be 3D models in ZBrush and working the way I do my He-Man stuff, or like the Morbid Angel stuff, which would have a similar process. I feel there's enough facets to the work I do that it's always interesting. But like, for instance, when I finish up teaching, next week's my last week of teaching classes and then December rolls in where we have revision and then you're grading. But in that time off, I'm going to be off out in the woods with my camera, probably not listening to death metal, but listening to very quiet, calm music and photographing trees and textures for my own work. And then I'll start with canvas. And I like to mix it up because I know in February I'll get busy with He-Man and pop culture and 80s stuff. And I like to it feels like I have almost a semester timetable for college, but I have a semester timetable for my work because I know when con season is going to get busy. I know I'm going to have a quiet period that I can just start doing my own work. And I think there was that egotistical arty itch to scratch for years that when I got to do the things I really wanted to do, like doing an album cover for Morbid Angel. And then when I talked to Gary Ronaldson, who's like, oh yeah, I just did another t-shirt from Napalm Death and I did something for Pig Destroyer and Primordial. And I'm like, I'm just a one-hit wonder. I did Morbid Angels. That's all I got. But I got to work for Black Star Riders, and they're some of the members of Tin Lizzy, and it was the drummer from Megadeth. And I remember the guy Ace from the record company goes, check out Classic Rock magazine this month, and I bought it. And I went, I see nothing in it. He goes, did you not see the inside cover? And I opened it, and it was a double-page spread in Classic Rock of my stuff. And I was like, holy shit. So I got to hit these lovely bucket list things, and I guess since then I kind of relaxed into just going with the flow. And this is someone in the metal community is going to think he's an asshole for saying this, but have you ever? I feel sorry for the younger generations that have to compete as they're developing with AI. It's so unfair because we got to do it. AI wasn't there to threaten us when we were 20, But I see younger people sometimes in our community who are only showing stuff to themselves, to their friends, to other metal designers and not to clients. And then you got people who are going, that piece of that logo, you stole that. You see that pointy bit? You stole that off my logo. And it's like, but I started to understand a lot of people doing metal love doing branding. They love doing the logos. Whereas I'm an illustrator. I didn't design this. I designed this.
Yeah.
And you're like me like that. But I don't know. It sounds very judgmental the way I said it, but I kind of want to step away from parts of communities where people are bickering or people are just going, artists against AI and we shouldn't be doing this. And you stole that from me, and I'm kind of going, I just want to go for a walk in the woods and remember what makes me happy about my work. But sometimes I reflect on that and remember I can do that because of the reasons I gave, because I work in a college, and I was lucky enough I worked for a Battletech, so I've got my sci-fi. I can walk into a bookshop in Spain, into like a Dungeons and Dragons shop, and I can find my artwork in a book. I can walk into a heavy metal store anywhere in the world and I can find an album I've done artwork on. So they were the things I've always wanted as an artist, and there are other people who have not got the chance to do that, and they might never have the chance because of where technology has taken that away from them.
Yeah, for sure.
But the other side of it is you got to just, isn't it? It sounds terrible when we say it, but stop fighting amongst yourselves and find a place to put your work. Find a place where. Do you know Chris Do? Have you heard of Chris Do? He's a California guru.
He sounds familiar. The name sounds familiar.
I saw this great little 30-second Instagram thing. He said, "Whereas you got to rise above the noise. If you're in a blood pool, in like a business term, where it's like if you're in a community and it's all people who are doing metal logos that all look the same, but you're not showing them to clients, you're showing them to each other. You need to figure out a way for your work, well, one, to stand out, and to put it somewhere else where the clients can see it, not the other artists." Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah.
And I feel like some of the stuff I see online, it's I maybe it's just me like getting older too. A year ago, 2 years ago, I had a trip to Colombia where I got a tropical virus, and it affected my immune system. So I'm more tired. I'm old. I don't want to go outside in the dark. So I count myself very fortunate I got to do all of those things. And I love teaching because I have a bunch of young students who have those challenges ahead of them that we didn't have. So I try to make it as encouraging as I can, but I use those kind of examples of the internet kind of just, I suppose, sometimes setting you up to fail because um it's got to be hard when you're trying really hard and somebody else is just saying you're not as good as me, or we're in a society where you're pitted against each other like it's like a breakdance battle, or it's a soccer game. The competition is kind of almost sports like, but the art has never been that for me. You know.
Yeah, I mean, like, I had when I was talking to Samuel Araya, the last interview I did, like, whether or not I'm getting paid, or I'm still going to create art regardless,
Yeah.
because it's kind of who I am and it relaxes me. It's fulfilling. So it's like if you lose that, then honestly, I feel like people weren't really passionate about it. If they just kind of like, I mean, I know people get burnt out and they step away from stuff, but for me, it's like it's always been, even as a kid, it's always been a go-to, curing depression, loneliness. You always have that pen and paper you can create, and I feel that's what's missing now, especially with social media and how everything is like, Instagram's forcing you to make stupid reels, like dance like a monkey, to like promote your work, and that
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
is
Well,
that was another question. It was like, I mean, you're pretty active online, but you have like you're not like you're not to the point where some artists, they're like posting 5, 6, 7 times a day because they have to in order to get their algorithm to feed
yeah,
it to
but
the right people.
again, I have a career that I don't need to worry about the algorithm. I guess I
Yeah.
get to teach about the algorithm and the ethics and the exploration of how technology affects our lives and our jobs. But I don't have to. My kid is standing behind us making faces at me. He's got a sign that says 5 more minutes.
It's like, when's dinner?
Yeah. Oh no, it's way past his bedtime too. But the whole thing for me is yeah, that whole dancing monkey stuff with the algorithm. I was never going to keep up with it. I'm not 20 needing the understanding the algorithm as someone who's grown up with it to use it to completely create your income from it. I would rather just now do the work that just comes at me and do it at my own pace, and quality over quantity. And that's kind of where I'm at. So I'm lucky with that. I have the clients I want. At this stage, if somebody comes along and says, yourself now, if somebody comes along and goes, well, I have a friend I have a friend with a crack copy of Photoshop. And that was their excuse for getting the drummer to do the artwork for the band, right? They didn't know how to use Photoshop. They just happened to have a crack copy of it, right? Now it's like, well, my friend is really good at prompting. I'm like, well, if you just let him do it, or she, or he, or them, I don't care. If you're going to give me that as an excuse to guilt me into doing your artwork, I don't want to work with you in the first place. You know what I mean? If you're going to use some kind of, as my friend calls, exposure dollars, and the way he puts it is, you could die from exposure. I don't want those clients. And you and I, we've done our time as younger artists with those type of clients who want to exploit you. So and it does happen sometimes still. People will ask you for stuff, and people will email me because they want students to do it. They want students. Oh, I did this great project for your students, and I protect my students because I'm not letting them fall into the same traps that we did, or definitely I did. Um, and I feel also, and I've talked to some of my friends in the States about this. I think you guys have a greater respect for the monetary value of art because you guys have to pay a lot of money to go to art college. You know,
Oh
you're
yeah.
in Ireland, you don't have that. So when you go to art school here, there's always some friend or some one of your friends' mothers, and he became a lawyer, and they're going, "Are you still drawing?" I think, and it's kind of said in a way to go, "Isn't that lovely that you have a hobby?" And you're like, "Actually, I'm a professional artist, and I make money off it." Really? Is that a thing now? It's like, where do you think your Netflix comes from? Who's writing all that music? Who's making the album covers on those bands and the stuff you read every day, the books that you're reading? You know, it just appears, you know, that there's nobody is actually creating anything creative and making money off it. Oh, that couldn't be possibly a job, you know. So there's a different respect, I think, because you still have student loans. If you went to art school in America, you have student loans, right? So you got to go
Yeah.
out there, you got to work. So
Yeah, actually, I was kind of commending Ireland because they did like the basic income for artists
yeah,
thing where they're and now like to me that's like to me art is beyond just pretty pictures. It's like it serves a purpose in society as a whole, and people don't
oh
like
yeah,
you said they don't realize how important it is even throughout history. Like architecture, weapon design. I mean, all that stuff. It's all art based. And like I think that's why artists will always be on the fringe of like just kind of like rebels because people do not still to this day they don't take art seriously as a career. They think it's just a hobby because
yeah,
anybody can do art, but
oh, yeah.
not everybody can do it professionally and make a career out of it. But
Yes.
yeah,
Say that to the guy who designed your Nikes. You know, say that to the person who designed your clothes, your wardrobe, your IKEA furniture, your Smeg um, fridge. You know, all those lovely Netflix screensavers. Even all of these things have to be considered. You know,
yeah,
but
totally.
I'm also tired of having that conversation all the time. Where but less and less in my life nowadays. One of my favorite things that's really funny is when I had my friends when I was younger who always thought you were like the hippie, oh, I went to art college, you know, your arty friend, or I did feel quite I suppose self-conscious for a couple of years in my late 20s when a lot of my friends had finished college and they had already started to get the real life, you know, and they'd become lawyers or environmental scientists, different things. So they had already started the mortgage where my path was probably an extra decade. I was 37 before I landed my teaching career, and I'd already done a number of like I worked in fashion retail and design for a number of years too, and photography freelance before that. But I'm 10 years behind my friends, so I went through a bit of kind of a self reflection there, going, "Oh, is this ever going to happen? How is it going to work for me?" But I stuck to it because I knew I didn't want any of the other kind of normalities. But there was a time when more and more people going, "Do you really make money off art?" And now some of those people will ring me going, "Do you know all that crazy stuff you do with computers?" I go, "Yeah. I have a kid here who wants to do that in college. What's a Wacom tablet? What do I buy them for Christmas?" So it's kind of come full circle that the people my age who have kids who want to go to college are ringing me or texting me asking for advice for their kids because they know that we have a bigger industry in Ireland now. We have two movie studios. There's one down the road from me where they're shooting Wayfinders, and I got to work on that. And they shot the first season of Apple's Foundation there. So I have loads of friends who worked on Apple's
Oh,
Foundation.
okay.
They've worked on Game of Thrones. I have friends like Stephen Lindsay was an extra on Vikings, and some other stuff. And actually, some of the people I know in theatre, their family work in the prosthetics. So I can go down 2 kilometers down the road here to a movie studio and see all the prosthetics and decapitated heads and hands from Vikings. And in the same room, I'll find the suits from Halo that were the test prints, and also a leftover spaceship from Foundation that's been turned into a lighting rig inside in the studio, right? And that's just over here. And one of the guys had to borrow my scanner one day because their scanner broke. So that's just down the road. So there's a bigger industry for games and film in Ireland right now. And I love the fact that it's localized, that it isn't, you have to move to Dublin, because one of the things in our college when I started was everyone a lot of people connected success to moving to Dublin or London. They were the only two places in the world that you could make money as a designer or be taken seriously. And I was like, don't we have this lovely new thing called the internet? Can I stay here in Limerick and do it for other people in other countries, So,
Yeah. All right. Last question. I asked this question. Dream projects. I mean, I know you've already done so many, but if there was any project you'd love to work on, what would it be?
I have this running dream that if I ever won the lottery in Ireland, that I would still work as a lecturer, but I would I do it in a way that I'd set up. There's some buildings I love here in the city that I would buy one of those, and I would set it up to be the best digital art studio that has camera gear, and then people who graduate, that you'll be able to give them a kind of a bursary, like a year's salary to work on whatever they need, And it's funny. Here's the karma right now. A guy has just texted me, who is I'm looking at a WhatsApp text above here, right? I met this really eccentric and funny guy in Tenerife. We had an exhibition in Tenerife, a He-Man one as part of Comic-Con, and I met him again in Germany. And he has invited me to be part of a Microsoft-sponsored project where they're building a full-size Castle Grayskull in Murcia in Spain.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
I'm in on that. And he just texted me as you asked me that. So
very cool.
Put that down to the karma there. But I suppose the dream jobs are something that someone comes to you with where they want you to be you. And you go, geez, I never thought I'd do that. Rather than having something that I would dream that I definitely is something I've always wanted to do. I don't know, I'd love if someone invited me to leave a talk in Tokyo, Comic-Con or I kind of feel from working in metal, there's like always a little bit of never meet your heroes. Kind of vibe off of it. It's not as glamorous as when you were younger and you were reading about it in magazines that you thought like, oh, I could be the next Dan Seagrave. Because I literally read about him in 1996 about all his work for Morbid Angel, and 20 years later I was doing it. Or being the Drew Struzan of the world now, because the world has changed, and I don't think you'll ever get to be that legendary status or whatever as an artist. But I cannot think off the top of my head of anything unless I got to directly work for Mattel on a He-Man project. And this part of me would be like, I prefer working for the third party because there's a bit more liberal.
More creative
if I'm working
control.
for a con in Germany that had the license to do the product, there's a bit more leeway than if you work directly with the company, And there was kind of rumors from my movie friends about like maybe some of the Motu stuff being shot in Ireland in our studios. That never came to fruition, but there was a kind of a moment going, what if I got to contribute to the design of Castle Grayskull for the film, something like that. But that never kind of became a serious dream in my head. That would have been something that I would have just kind of happily contemplated, like winning the lottery, I think what I would love to do is I got to do a big project last summer where I got to do a 10-foot by 12-foot piece of art for a music festival in Ireland, our biggest music festival. And I was the first digital artist to do it. So I did it like a billboard and I pasted it up and I painted back over it with acrylic. And it brought back my love of using acrylics, and it just felt so natural. I was matching the colors perfectly. I was on form. I was in the flow, painting large, and I want to do more of that. I want to do big canvases. There's a couple of kind of portrait artist of the year award in the kind of more fine art communities here in Ireland. That's something I think I'm going to try and submit to. Not this year. I'm going to do it patiently. I don't want to go, okay, submissions next April. I got to get a huge acrylic painting finished for next April. I've kind of now just kind of, I guess, the confidence that comes with time and going, it'll be finished when it's finished. Then I'll submit it.
Yeah.
I think maybe you feel the same because I see how much you create of your personal work, and every one of them for you, I think from what I see, is an exploration. And you possibly never considered it a masterpiece because you got, okay, I've learned this from this one. What do I do with the next one? What else can I explore, or what can I take from this piece of art to do the next one? But in the middle of that, you might have a client piece, but you're still thinking about that other thing you figured out. So I've got a bit of that going on right now that I'm going to explore over Christmas. And I also made an audio to text note to myself to go, I could possibly write another article, because I started writing for Imagine Effects a couple of years ago, which was also my bucket list, my favorite art magazine. And I got to write for them. And I straight up asked them, I said, I've always wanted to be on your front cover. And they put one of my pieces of art on the annual for 2023. They put 9 of us on the front cover.
Oh, very cool.
And that was there, right there. That was like me winning an Oscar. And it's nice. It's so nice to have them take on board what I say, that I'm not writing like a crazy conspiracist and everyone's ignoring my emails. That I go, hey, I have this idea because this new tech came out, but we could do it with fine art. And they go, oh, do you know what? We have a space in February's issue, and it's going to tie in with this. That'll be this happened to me a couple of times ago. That's perfect timing. It's going to fit in with this thing. And I love when those moments happen, where there's a type of like, it's like the world is sending you the right signals at the right time. So I don't know. You have to respect the karma. You can't mess with it. But
all right, Ken. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure. I'm going to leave a link to all your stuff below the video. But anybody watching, make sure you check out Ken's work. Amazing artist, very inspiring for myself as well. But yeah, thank you. Oh,
nope.
thanks again, man.
Thank you. See you again soon.